Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Sam and Cole podcast. We're brought to you, as we have been for the last couple of months, by the High Intensity Training Center, the HIT Center, right here in Jacksonville, across the street from Steak and Shake off of Route 1, just north of the Avenues Mall. Look, January 1st is right around the corner. You're going to have a chance to kind of make a resolution. These are the guys that can help you keep it. And that's, to me, that's the fun part because hey, anybody can make a resolution, Cole, but
I've made hundreds of them.
Keeping it, I think, is the key, and that's where
results is what you're looking for,
right? And
results,
right? And to me, that's the neat thing is that the results are evident. They can get your numbers, they can get you going, and help you hang in there, be very motivating, and not a lot of money. The High Intensity Training Center on Phillips Highway is the presenting sponsor of the Sam and Cole podcast. And by the way, you might see me in there on a pretty regular basis as soon as I get back from the Rose Bowl. But Jaguar season is over, 3-13. Your assessment is 3-13 is worse than 4-12.
Let me do some math here. Carry the one cipher. Okay, yes, 3-13 is worse than 4-12. However, I don't think this was a worse season than last year. I think it has the chance to become a worse season, but there are a lot of what-ifs here. And let me explain myself for a moment. The hopes of this team are pinned on the guy they drafted this year who played at quarterback. Now, obviously, it can't just be about the quarterback, but that's the big linchpin in this whole concept of trying to create,
right?
A winning mentality. What do they call it? They're protecting the culture.
Right.
Well, I got to be honest.
Because in this league, you don't win without a quarterback.
No doubt. Yeah. And we saw some things from Blaine Gabbert that early on, from Blake Bortles that early on looked like, hey, this is a totally different guy than Blaine Gabbert. We saw some things that maybe later on you went, and that's the big concern with a lot of fans is this guy Blaine Gabbert 2.0? Mm-hmm. And I think he is not Blaine Gabbert 2.0 from a personality standpoint. The question is he some other type of quarterback? And this is the thing that we don't know. There have been a lot of quarterbacks with the right mentality and a big arm, smart guys who took a long time to develop or maybe didn't develop. There's no guarantee. We can't just sit here and say he's going to be the guy. And I think that's where certainly in the Twitter sphere last night after the Jaguars lost the finale to Houston, there was a lot of back and forth from a lot of fans talking about trying to determine where Blake Bortles is at this point. And I think they have some other things, and I tweeted this out. You've got some positives. Obviously some of the young guys like Allen Robinson, Telvin Smith, Brandon Linder showed some positives. Defensive line, much better. Pass rush, by and large, much better. But there are so many things that need to be fixed that it's not just if the quarterback is better, they're suddenly going to be a contender. I think they have a long way to go still, and it's not just because their record is 3-13. They have done in the last 2 years, record-wise, exactly what they did in the previous 2 years, record-wise, and that got a lot of folks fired.
I do think that the linchpin is the quarterback. I don't think there's any question about that, but I do think that he's going to be much improved in terms of reading, understanding, making better decisions. I think you saw a lot of that as the season progressed. He really hit that lull there in the middle of the year that I think a lot of rookies hit, where he just was turning the ball over and couldn't get out of his own way. Watching him against Houston, still locks onto a guy a lot of times and doesn't see the wide open guy because he doesn't check out of that. An improved offensive line I think would help that, but he's going to be better. Now he's not going to be as good as he's going to be I think in year 3 or year 4, but he's going to be better, and you have to have better quarterback play than they had in order to think that you're going to be any better. So I'll just say that he's going to be better than he was this year. How good? Like you said, the fact that he's better doesn't make them an instant contender. He's still a second-year player. So, but I do think it gives them a better chance. The thing that they have to do is figure out how that offensive line is going to be put together and where the running game is going to come from. Because I do think that you're going to see 4 wide receivers in Allen Hurns, Allen Robinson, Marquise Lee, and Justin Blackman. Okay, those are going to be
he's going to be back.
I do. And he can apply for reinstatement in April. Now, this is all predicated on he doesn't get in trouble again. But if he just follows the protocol that's going along now, he's going to be on the Jaguars in 2015. So now they'll go out and sign some sort of veteran guy. Be great to get a guy like Andre Johnson, but Texans are never going to let him go, no matter whether he's become a possession receiver or not.
By the way, it's pretty darn good possession receiver if that's all he is right now.
Well, and the guy on the other side is the deep threat.
Yeah.
What's that guy's name? I forget. DeAndre Hopkins. Yeah, is the deep threat. So, but Andre Johnson's fantastic. So,
and by the way, great locker room presence too. If you wanted to.
So, but that's what you're looking for. A veteran player who comes in. Yeah, Torrey Smith is going to be a free agent.
Right.
And they paid Flacco all that money.
Randall Cobb is going to be a free agent.
Right. Those are the kinds of guys that you're looking at, and you're going to willing to overpay a guy like that, who knows how to get open, who knows how to play, and can help the other guys. The second year for those guys, getting away from Cecil Shorts, understanding what it takes to play in the National Football League, all those are positive things. I think you're going to have a much better idea of where Bortles is, because he's going to have guys to throw to that are open and are potentially going to catch it.
One of the things that, and I agree with those guys, I'm not sure if Marquise Lee is going to be able to catch it. That's a concern. He's got to catch the ball better. I think Allen Robinson could be a very good number 2. I think 2 or 3, depending on the system you're running. I think he can be very good. Huge wild card with Justin Blackman.
The thing about Lee is that, Cole, that's fascinating, is that I think he came into the league thinking he could just do what he did in college, and it was going to be the same. And Gus had a talk with him, and so and he started to get better. He got an opportunity when Robinson got hurt. He caught some good passes. And what I've seen with him, spending time with him in the locker room, seeing him in postgame, running into him in the hotel, is a guy that is a little bit kind of confused, but is figuring out that if he wants to be what he thinks he is, that he's going to have to work for it. And this is the time. You're right. You don't know if it's going to happen, but this is the time for him to figure that out and make that commitment in the offseason to go and find Blake Bortles and catch passes from him, to go and seek out other receivers and get things done.
Yeah, and one of the other storylines that is going to be interesting to see what happens this offseason is the development of a leadership core on this team. One of the things that so many people talked about after the game, so many players talked about after the game, I think Gus talked about it too, was what's going to be important this offseason and into 2015 is raising the bar. And that is not only raising the bar in terms of how you prepare, how you go about your business, but it's really about setting a level of expectation that, the quote-unquote Jaguars way, they have to set a higher level of expectation for performance and preparation than they've set. And this goes back to the thing about Gus being, taking away the distractions and all these things. Sometimes I think you got to push him a little bit. I'm not saying that all he does is pat him on the back. I know that there's some, kick him in the tail coaching going on, but they're going to have to raise that level of expectation, and that has to come, yes, from the coaches, but it also has to come from the veteran players. And I thought it was very interesting today. Zane Beadles told me that one of the things that he had to deal with this year was being a leader, a different kind of leader, being a traditional leader, not just a lead by example or a go about your business. Coming to Jacksonville, he wanted that opportunity, and he had to figure out how to be a leader in the course of the year. And I think there are a lot of those guys. I mean, listen, Paul Peslesny, if he's back, is a tremendous leader. He does everything the right way. He knows how to be a leader. But Bortles has to learn to be a leader. Somebody on that offensive line has to become the unabashed leader like Brad Meester was, or like Baselli was once upon a time. And some guys in the defensive backfield somebody's got to become the leader of that defensive backfield. And they've got to define those guys.
I hope Beadles emerges, because I thought his play on the field struggled some because of him trying to figure out what his role was on the team. And I think that's part of it. Because I think he's a good guy and potentially can be a very good player. But this year, I don't think there's any question, he was kind of middling. He wasn't what they thought they were getting in terms of performance.
By the way, neither was the guy to his left.
And Jokel, I think they knew that that's exactly what they were going to get this year because he was still a rookie. this year. We're not going to agree on this, okay? So just stop trying to convince me.
I'm just saying, listen, he's got to take he has to take a substantial step forward.
Which is only funny because without prompting, in the locker room yesterday, I said to him, hey, Luke, the bar isn't just raised next year. It's going up 5 or 6 notches. And you've got to start winning football games. And he said, and I've got to start playing better. He said, and I'll really have an off season. This will really be the first off season that I have because all I did last year in the off season was rehab. This year, I have a chance because, and I said to him, are you healthy? He said, I'm 100% healthy. He said, I'm going to have a chance to put some weight on. I'm going to have a chance to get stronger. I'm going to have a chance to specifically work on technique. He said, this is a very important offseason for me. And I said, and for the entire team. Because I said, I mean, it was a nice discussion because he's a smart and a nice guy and willing to kind of listen to reality. And I said, everybody's got to get better. And he went, without question. He said, it starts with you, but as a unit across the board, everybody's got to get better and get better fast. You know?
And I like that that's his approach in the offseason. Yes, he's got to get stronger. Technique is a big thing. I mean, listen, he had the ultimate litmus test on Sunday in the National Football League trying to block J.J. Watt, and he didn't block J.J. Watt.
I don't know if anybody could block J.J. Watt.
Well, this is what I was going to say. It shows you all your weaknesses.
Yeah, I didn't understand what Jed Fish was thinking there.
I totally agree with you.
I mean, there's like the safety, for instance. There's 3 elements there. Okay, first of all, you put him 1-on-1 against Jokel. I don't care who you are. Nobody blocks him these days.
I didn't chip him.
Okay, something. 2, Bortles didn't recognize that he was going to have to get rid of the ball pretty quickly there, standing on the goal line, and he had maybe 3 seconds instead of 3.5, but that ball should have been out. He should have seen that coming. 3rd, what is Jed Fish doing calling that play in that situation?
I totally agree, and I will tell you this, and I like Jed Fish. I think he's, in my dealings with him, he's been very good at being candid and so. But I think he has a little bit of a video game offensive coordinator's mentality, and which is, hey, he can dial up the plays and he can pick and when they work, it's great. But sometimes you have to understand the human element of man versus man, and sometimes those guys who love the passing game and the trick plays and that sort of thing tend to lose sight of this, whereas a guy who comes from the running, a Marty Schottenheimer style offensive coordinator knows about that, and that it's first and foremost in their mind. There's no doubt, you've got to be able to understand what's happening up front. If the offensive line didn't get any better, they're in big trouble. I mean, there's obviously, because they gave up the 2nd most sacks in the NFL in the last 10 years or something. So obviously they've got to get better on the offensive line. Again, it goes back to what we talked about a couple of weeks ago. Are they going to spend in free agency? Are they going to spend like a team that's got 300-foot video boards in their stadium, or are they going to spend like a team that's in the 3rd smallest media market in the National Football League? And if they spend, will they spend it on the right guys? Because you can draft all you want, but if you're counting on rookies to solve problems this year in the NFL, you're wishing down an empty well. And right. So they've got to find veterans come in.
They've got to get older on offense. You're exactly right. Some of those guys that are on that team right now are going to get old fast, and that's good. Others are not going to develop at that level. They got to bring some guys in who are older and understand what it takes. They need a running back. I like all their running backs. I don't like how Jed Fish used them. And to your point, from a video game standpoint, my complaint with Jed, and this isn't anything I wouldn't say to him to his face. Sometimes you got to have a feel for it. Get off the card, get off the script. Hey, Toby Gerhart just gained 9 and 8. Give it to him again. It means obviously he's feeling it. The offensive line is, give it to him. It's
the Vinnie Johnson corollary, right? When Vinnie Johnson, the old Pistons guard, would come off the bench, the microwave. They'd just feed him until he made it, then he'd keep shooting until he missed, and he'd go sit down.
That's right. So, I mean, I just think that there's a lot of that going on in the league these days, and maybe Jed also has got to get older a little quick.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, there are some very successful teams, or aren't going to the postseason, who are also thinking about how they're going to get better next year. Although there was only one team in the NFL that won double-digit games that didn't go to the postseason, and that was Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
Every other team that won 10 games or more is playing in the postseason.
All right, it'd be foolish to sit here and start making predictions on the Jaguars' record next year because we don't know what the roster is going to look like. But what does Gus Bradley need? What does he have to have happen in order to have year 4?
Shad Khan is a very competitive person in his own right, very passionate about competition, and is a football fan. Now, that can really help you if you're an owner who's willing to let your football people run it, or it can really hurt you if you're Daniel Snyder.
Right.
So, but Khan is going to spend the money to be a competitive team. I think there's not going to be this, hey, we're in the smallest media market, we can't do this, we can't do that. That's out the window. They got to start spending money like they're going to try to win games, not get better, but win games this year. And I personally think they've got to win 7 games.
Yeah, if it's any less than that, I think there's big trouble. I think that's probably
if they win 6, they had to lose on the last drive on the road in terrible weather in a couple of games to kind of have an idea that that was kind of a fluke. But if they win 5, 4, 3 games, they're all even on the same day.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, and it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. Who was your biggest surprise this year, good or bad, for the Jaguars?
I think it's easy to choose Telvin Smith. Guy came in, forced his way into the lineup, has unbelievable speed, was considered too light to play the position, and just kept showing up and stayed in the lineup. I think he was my up surprise. I was disappointed in Toby Gerhardt's performance, only because I wanted him to do so well, but he was injured, and a lot of things didn't seem to go right for him. I hope he's on this roster at the beginning of next year and has a chance to make this roster again with some other big time running back that they sign in the off season. Maybe draft.
I like the pick of Telvin Smith. I would also say I think J.T. Thomas was a huge surprise.
I think there's a guy that there wasn't a massive drop off when Paul got hurt. So when Paul comes back, Thomas is going to stay in the lineup somewhere, and that's going to make the linebacking core even better.
And the other guy who I thought was a pleasant surprise was Luke Bowanko. Thought he played well for a rookie center, particularly a guy who's such a late round pick who they didn't necessarily think was going to play right away.
Right.
Remember when camp started, Mike Brewster was the heir apparent, and Jacques McClendon and these other guys all got
the starter. I mean,
the starter. Heir apparent to Meester.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Who's the guy? And then the other from a surprise standpoint, I think you'd have to say Alan Hearns to put up the numbers he did being undrafted. Got to be real positive. The one I don't see being a factor next year out of this whole thing is Ace Sanders, who did next to nothing in returns, and at some point, doesn't a team just stumble into having an explosive return man?
Yeah.
And the Jaguars haven't had one since Reggie Barlow.
What about Tandon Doss? Maybe he ends up being a guy that's a return guy. I don't think Todman's on this team next year. I think Todman's going to have to fight his way on this team. I don't think Ace Sanders is on this team. Cecil Shorts is not on this team. Mercedes Lewis is on this team if they want to continue to have a big blocking type tight end, but they're going to have to sign somebody else or draft George O'Leary or somebody like that.
Nick O'Leary. Yeah, George O'Leary won't help them that much.
Yeah, they could draft George O'Leary, but I don't think he would help them. Nick O'Leary, on the other hand, could probably help them. So, yeah, I just think that there are some popular guys who aren't going to be on this team. I think they still really like Denard Robinson. I think he's going to have to fight his way on this team next year. that's what you want. You want a guy like Denard Robinson who showed great promise, who showed an opportunity like that, who has a great pedigree, who has a great attitude, who the Jaguars want to succeed. You want him to have to fight his way on the roster because there are other guys who can do the job already.
I'll just say it's an awful lot of mid-round draft picks from the last 2 years who probably, who may not be on the roster next year.
Gone. I agree.
And
Absolutely.
that's a little bit of an indictment considering they blew the whole thing.
They're gonna sign a safety somehow. They need better safety play.
No doubt.
You get Blackman back, you get Alan Ball back. Colvin is developed. McRae is clearly a guy who can play some. So I think that kind of comes together. They got to sign a veteran safety, somebody who comes in and either Cyprien is going to figure it out, because I just watched him in the game Sunday, and I mean he's still,
when he's going forward and making plays in the run game, he can be pretty effective. Although he missed some tackles.
Right, and then Evans is a little undersized and also sometimes looks befuddled back there. Yeah. So I just think that they need some veteran leadership back there, and you hope that Senderick Marks, who suffered a torn ACL, is able to play next year at somewhere north of 90% of what he produced this year.
Yeah, I think they're going to draft a defensive lineman in the first round. I'm saying that right now. That's my early prediction.
Let me tell you, if they're third and the first two and the quarterbacks to go for 1 and 2, and they don't take Leonard Williams, then they've got they got lots of splaining to do, Ricky.
I think so too. All right, Sam, have a happy New Year, and
all right, you too.
Have a happy New Year as well. If you're listening to this after New Year's, hope you had a happy New Year. That'll do it for the 2014 installments of the Sam and Cole podcast, presented by the High Intensity Training Center. A great way to start the year if you want to get those New Year's resolutions to become New Year's results. The fusion of science and sport.
Don't be afraid. That's right. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to go and commit yourself to do something like that. It's not hard. You can do it at your own pace. Don't be scared. Take that leap of faith in your own ability to get things done and go get it done this year.
All right, that'll do it for the Sam and Cole podcast. You can follow us on iTunes. You can subscribe there or on Stitcher. And also follow Sam on Twitter at Sam Kavaris. Follow me on Twitter at Cole Pepper. Sam will be no doubt tweeting after the Gus Bradley and Dave Caldwell comments later this week. Going to be interesting to see what the head coach and the general manager have to say as well. Thanks so much. Happy New Year, and thanks for listening to the Sam and Cole podcast.